The medical bay of the Perseus smelled like cleaning chemicals and metal. Dr. Ben Carter stood at his workstation, reviewing patient files on his screen. The ship had been home to both humans and warriors for 6 months now. The alliance between the two species was still new, still awkward in many ways. Commander entered the medical bay with heavy footsteps. The warrior stood nearly 8 feet tall. His crimson scales caught the overhead lights. 4 powerful arms hung at his sides. His species came from a world where gravity crushed weaker beings. They had evolved to be strong, to heal fast, to endure pain that would kill most other creatures. Dr. Carter said, his voice rumbled like distant thunder, "I come for the monthly health assessment." Ben looked up from his work. "Good morning, Commander. Please have a seat on the exam table." Nurse walked over with her medical scanner. She had worked with alien species before, but the still made her nervous. They were so large, so powerful. One casual movement could break human bones. Sat down, the exam table groaned under his weight. "I do not understand why your species requires these constant checkups," he said. "Bodies tell us when something is wrong." "Prevention is better than cure," Ben replied. He began the examination. "We catch problems before they become serious." The commander laughed. It was not a kind sound. "Humans are so fragile, you need machines to tell you what your own bodies should know." His jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She had heard this kind of talk before, the thought themselves superior. They made no secret of it. Another warrior entered the medical bay. His name was, and he served under. He carried a data pad and stopped when he saw his commander on the exam table. "Commander, the training schedule has been updated," said. He glanced at the human medical staff. "Are the soft skins poking at you with their toys again?" Laughed again. "Yes, they insist on their primitive examinations." Ben felt heat rise in his chest, but he kept his face calm. He continued the scan. "Your secondary arm shows some muscle strain. You should rest it for a few days." "Rest?" Eyes widened in mock surprise. "Doctor, I once fought for 3 days with a broken leg. A little muscle strain is nothing." "That may be true," Ben said carefully, "but unnecessary damage can cause long-term problems." Snorted, humans and their fear of pain. "I heard about the soldier last week. He screamed like a child when you set his broken finger." His face flushed red. That soldier had multiple fractures. The bones had shifted and needed realignment. "We heal such injuries without your chemicals," said. He stood up from the table. "Do you know what we do when a bone breaks? We set it ourselves and continue fighting. We do not cry for your anesthesia." "Different species have different tolerances," Ben said. His voice stayed level despite his anger. "That does not make one better than the other." "Does it not?" Looked down at the human doctor. "Your kind cannot endure what children handle without complaint. You need your drugs, your pain management, your sedation. We need nothing but our strength." Before Ben could respond, the medical bay doors opened again. A human Marine entered, supporting another Marine who limped badly. The injured man's face was twisted in pain. "Doc, we need help," the first Marine said. His name was Jake. He was 30 years old, with short dark hair and steady eyes. Private twisted his ankle during the obstacle course. Ben moved quickly to help, put him on the exam table, and watched as the human medical team worked. Was clearly in pain. Sweat covered his forehead. He hissed through his teeth when removed his boot. "It's badly swollen," said. "Possible fracture." "I'll scan it," Ben said. He moved the medical scanner over his ankle. The holographic display showed the bones. "Hairline fracture, not too serious, but it needs to be immobilized." Groaned, "How long until I can get back to duty?" 4 to 6 weeks with proper treatment," Ben told him. Behind them laughed. 6 weeks for such a tiny injury, or would be healed in 6 days. Crossed his arms, all 4 of them. "This is what I mean, doctor. Your species is weak. You break easily and heal slowly, and you need chemicals to endure even minor pain." Jake had been standing quietly, but now he spoke. "Commander, with respect, we're different from your species. That doesn't make us weak." "Does it not?" Turned to face Jake fully. "Tell me, human, could you endure bone surgery without your precious anesthesia?" "I don't know," Jake said honestly. "I've never tried." "Exactly," said. "Because you could not. Your kind needs to be unconscious for such procedures. You cannot handle the pain." The words hung in the air. Every human in the medical bay felt the insult. They had been working alongside them for months, trying to build trust, trying to create a real alliance. And still, the aliens looked down on them. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the ship. The overhead speakers crackled to life. All personnel report to stations, training exercise beginning in Bay 3. And turned to leave. Come, we must oversee the combat drills, said. They walked out, their heavy footsteps fatting down the corridor. Shook her head. I'm so tired of their attitude. Let it go, Ben said quietly. We can't change how they think. Jake helped get comfortable while Ben prepared a splint. The injured Marine would be fine. The fracture would heal. Everything would return to normal. Except it would not. 2 hours later, the alarm sounded again. This time it was not a drill. Medical team to Training Bay 3, immediate assistance required. Ben grabbed his emergency kit, was right behind him. They ran through the corridors. When they reached the training bay, they found chaos. A gravity simulator had malfunctioned. Heavy equipment lay scattered across the floor, and beneath a twisted piece of metal framework, Commander lay on the ground. His secondary right arm was crushed. Dark blood pooled beneath him. And other warriors stood around their commander. They had pulled the equipment off him, but the damage was done. His arm was bent at an impossible angle. Bone jutted through scaled skin. Pieces of metal were embedded in the wound. Ben dropped to his knees beside the injured warrior. Don't move, let me examine you. His face was tight with pain, but he made no sound. It is nothing, heal from such wounds. Not this time, Ben said. He scanned the injury. His stomach sank at what he saw. You have metal fragments embedded in the bone. Your natural healing will try to work around them. The bone will set wrong. You need surgery. Then do your surgery, growled. I do not need your chemicals. I will endure. Ben she looked back at him. They both knew what came next. Looked up at Jake from where he lay on the training bay floor. Blood still seeped from his crushed arm. The pain must have been terrible, but the commander's face showed only anger. A challenge, repeated. What kind of challenge, human? Jake stepped closer. His heart pounded, but his voice stayed calm. You said humans can't endure bone surgery without anesthesia. You said we're weak. I say you're wrong. Ben Carter stood up quickly. Jake, don't. But Jake continued. I have an old injury, left arm, broke it badly 3 years ago during an evacuation mission. Never healed right, hurts every day. I've been putting off the surgery because of deployment schedules. He held up his left arm. Same type of procedure you need, Commander. Bone needs to be rebroken and set properly. Metal fragments need to be removed. Jake, this is insane, said. Her face had gone pale. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Jake looked down at. Here's my challenge. If I can endure that surgery without any anesthesia, without any pain medication, you have to accept Dr. Carter's treatment. You have to trust human medicine. The training bay went silent. The other warriors stared at Jake like he had lost his mind. Even who had been so quick to mock humans earlier looked uncertain. His eyes narrowed. You would do this. You would allow your doctor to cut into your arm, to break your bone, to dig out metal fragments, all while fully conscious. Yes, Jake said simply. And if you fail, if you beg for your chemicals halfway through, then I'll accept that humans need anesthesia and I'll never question superiority again. Jake extended his right hand. Do we have a deal? Stared at the offered hand. His secondary arms were pinned, one of them crushed, but with his primary right hand, he reached up and grasped Jake's hand. We have a deal, human, but you will fail. Your species always does. We'll see, Jake said. The medical team transported to the medical bay. They stabilized his injury and gave him sedation for the pain. The metal fragments would poison his natural healing if left inside. The surgery could wait until after Jake's procedure, but not long. In his office, Ben paced back and forth. This is the thing I've ever heard. Jake, you don't have to prove anything to them. Jake sat on the exam table. His left arm rested in his lap. Yes, I do, not just to them, to us. They've been looking down on us for months. Someone needs to show them that humans are stronger than they think. Strength isn't about enduring unnecessary pain, argued. She was preparing medical equipment, but her hands shook. That's exactly the kind of thinking that gets people hurt. I know that, Jake said, but they don't. They only respect physical toughness, so I'll show them physical toughness. Ben stopped packing. He looked at Jake for a long moment. You really want to do this? I really do. even knowing how much it's going to hurt. Especially knowing that. Ben sighed. He pulled up a chair and sat down across from Jake. Tell me about the original injury, everything. Jake rolled up his sleeve. A long scar ran down his left forearm. 3 years ago, planet designated Harper 7. We were evacuating civilians before the planet's sun went nova. Things went wrong. Building collapsed. I was pinned under debris for 4 hours before rescue arrived. The arm was crushed, Ben asked. Broken in 3 places. Field medics did what they could, but we were under fire, no time for proper surgery. They splinted it and pumped me full of pain meds. By the time we got back to base, the bones had started healing wrong. Ben pulled up Jake's medical records on his screen. Why didn't you get it fixed then? I did, sort of. Jake flexed his fingers. They moved, but not smoothly. They rebroke it and set it again, but there were complications. Some metal fragments from the building were still inside. Too small to remove safely, they said. The bone healed around them. And now it hurts, said quietly. Every day, Jake confirmed. Especially when it rains, or when the ship changes artificial gravity, or pretty much any time I use it too hard. Ben examined the old scar. The procedure would involve re-breaking the bone at multiple points, removing the embedded metal, realigning everything properly, then setting it so it heals correctly this time. How long, Jake asked. 2 hours, maybe more. And the pain level? Ben met Jake's eyes. Honestly, it would be one of the worst things you've ever felt. We'd be cutting through scar tissue, breaking bone, digging out metal fragments, all in a part of your body that's already sensitive from the old injury. Jake nodded slowly. Can I survive it? Physically, I mean, will it kill me? No, Ben said. Your heart will race, your blood pressure will spike. You'll go into shock if we're not careful, but with proper monitoring, you'll survive. Then let's do it. Made a frustrated sound. Jake, please think about this. I have thought about it. Jake looked at her, then at Ben. Look, I know this seems crazy, but I've been living with this pain for 3 years. I was going to need the surgery anyway. This way, at least something good comes from it. Word spread through the Perseus faster than fire through dry grass. The human marine was going to undergo bone surgery without anesthesia. He was going to prove something to the... Everyone had an opinion. Captain Lisa Graham called Jake to her office. She was 45 years old, with gray-streaked hair and eyes that had seen too much combat. She sat behind her desk and studied Jake for a full minute before speaking. Do you understand what you're doing? She asked. Yes, ma'am. Do you understand that you're not just risking yourself? You're risking this entire alliance. If you fail, they will see it as proof that humans are weak. I won't fail, ma'am. Lisa leaned back in her chair. You sound very confident. I am. Why? Jake thought about his answer. Because I have to be, because someone needs to show them that we're not weak, and because I've already endured this pain for 3 years. What's 2 more hours? Lisa was quiet for a moment, then she stood up. I can't order you not to do this. You volunteered and you're within your rights. But Jake, if at any point during that surgery you need the anesthesia, you take it. That's not a suggestion, that's an order. Yes, ma'am. And Jake, if you pull this off, you'll have more than just this respect. You'll have mine too. The surgery was scheduled for the next morning. Jake spent the evening with his fellow Marines. They gathered in the rec room, playing cards and telling stories. No one mentioned what was coming. They all knew. Jake's closest friend on the ship sat next to him. You sure about this? Not even a little bit, Jake admitted, but I'm doing it anyway. That's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Was quiet for a moment. What if you can't do it? What if the pain is too much? Then I tried, Jake said. That's all anyone can do, right? Try. That night, Jake didn't sleep much. He lay in his bunk and thought about the next day. He thought about pain, about pride, about proving something that maybe didn't need to be proven. But mostly he thought about the look on his face when the commander had called humans weak. Morning came too quickly. Jake showered, dressed in medical scrubs, and walked to the medical bay. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. He had made his choice. The medical bay was crowded. Warriors lined one wall, come to watch the human fail. Human crew members lined the other wall, come to support their own. Captain Graham stood near the entrance, her face unreadable. Sat in a chair, his injured arm in a temporary brace. He looked at Jake with something like curiosity. You came. I said I would. Many humans say things they do not mean. The surgical table was cold against Jake's back. Medical lights shone down from above, bright and clinical. He could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Steady, fast but steady. Ben stood beside him, holding a surgical tool. We're going to start with a local cleaning solution. No numbing effect, but it will sterilize the area. You'll feel cold and pressure. Jake nodded. He watched Ben apply the solution to his left arm. The doctor was right. Cold liquid, pressure from the application pad, nothing painful yet. Check the monitors. Heart rate elevated but normal, blood pressure good, all systems ready. Around the room, the crowd watched in silence. The warriors stood like statues, their multiple arms crossed. They expected failure. Their faces showed it. The human crew members looked worried. They wanted Jake to succeed, but they feared what success would cost him. Leaned forward in his chair. Despite his own injury, despite the pain he must have felt, he focused completely on what was about to happen. His eyes never left Jake. I'm making the first incision now, Ben said. His voice was calm, professional. You're going to feel a sharp, burning sensation. Jake fixed his eyes on a spot on the ceiling, a small patch of paint that was slightly darker than the rest. He focused on that spot, made it the center of his universe. The scalpel touched his skin. Fire, that's what it felt like. A line of fire being drawn across his forearm. Jake's jaw clenched so hard he thought his teeth might crack. Every muscle in his body went tight, but he didn't move, he didn't make a sound. Good, Ben said quietly. You're doing good, keep breathing. Jake realized he had been holding his breath. He forced himself to breathe, in through his nose, out through his mouth, slow and controlled. A technique he had learned in training. Focus on the breath, make it a rhythm, let everything else fade. Ben worked carefully. He cut through scar tissue from the old injury. Each cut sent new waves of pain through Jake's arm. The scar tissue was thick, tougher than normal skin. It took longer to get through. Exposing the bone now, Ben said. Jake felt something different. Deeper pain, worse pain. The scalpel was cutting close to bone through muscle and tissue that had never properly healed. His hands started to shake. Reached over and took his right hand. Squeeze if you need to, I've got you. Jake squeezed hard, didn't flinch, she just held on. The warriors began to murmur among themselves. They spoke in their own language, too quiet for the translators to pick up. But their body language was clear. They were surprised. The human had not screamed, had not begged to stop, not yet. I can see the metal fragments, Ben said. 3 pieces, they're embedded in the bone itself. I need to extract them before we do the break and reset. Do it, Jake said through gritted teeth. His voice came out rough, strained. Ben picked up a different tool, smaller, more precise. This is going to hurt worse. The fragments are buried deep. I have to dig them out. No more warnings after that. Ben went to work. The tool scraped against bone. Jake felt it in his teeth, in his skull, in every nerve in his body. Pain exploded up his arm and into his shoulder. His back arched off the table. His free hand gripped the table edge so hard the metal bent under his fingers. But he did not scream. Sweat poured down his face, wiped it away with a cloth. His heart rate spiked on the monitors. The numbers climbed higher, watched them carefully, ready to call a stop if they went too high. First fragment out, Ben said. Jake's vision went white at the edges. Black spots danced in front of his eyes. He blinked them away, focused on his breathing. In and out, in and out. The pain was everything. The pain was nothing. He was more than pain. Second fragment, Ben said. This one was deeper. Ben had to work at it, carefully prying it free from bone that had tried to grow around it. Jake's entire body shook. Tremors ran through his muscles. His leg kicked involuntarily, but his arm stayed still. He kept it still through sheer willpower. Across the room spoke to another warrior. This is not possible. Humans cannot endure this. But Jake was enduring it, minute by minute, second by second, breath by breath. Third fragment, Ben said. His voice was tight. He had performed hundreds of surgeries, but he had never done one like this. Never had a patient fully conscious, fully feeling everything and still not giving up. The third fragment was the worst. It had buried itself deep into the bone. Ben had to use a tiny drill to create space around it. The vibration traveled up Jake's arm and into his chest. He tasted blood. He had bitten his lip without realizing it. Got it, Ben finally said. All fragments removed. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. For a moment he felt relief. Then he remembered what came next. The break and reset. Jake, Ben said, this is the hardest part. I have to re-break the bone in multiple places. Then I have to manipulate it back into proper alignment. There's no easy way to do this. I know, Jake whispered. You can stop now. We've removed the fragments. That's good progress. We can sedate you for the rest. No. Jake, please think about this. What comes next is going to be worse than anything you've felt so far. I said no. Jake turned his head to look at Ben. His eyes were wild with pain but still focused. Finish it, all of it. Ben looked at, she looked back. They were both afraid, not for themselves, but for Jake. What they were about to do seemed cruel, but Jake had made his choice. Okay, Ben said. Okay, prepare the bone cutters. The bone cutters were designed for surgery. They cut cleanly, precisely, but they cut through bone, and Jake would feel every second of it. Ben positioned the tool. On 3, 1, 2. He didn't say 3, he just cut. The sound was terrible, a crack like breaking wood. The pain was beyond description. It was white-hot and ice-cold at the same time. It was everything and nothing. Jake's vision went completely dark for a moment. When it came back, he realized he was making a sound, a low, continuous groan that came from deep in his chest. Almost there, Ben said. One more break. Jake couldn't speak anymore. He couldn't think. There was only pain and the desperate need to stay conscious, to not give up, to prove what needed proving. The second break was just as bad, maybe worse. Jake's hand crushed fingers. She bit her own lip to keep from crying out, but she held on. Now the realignment, Ben said. I have to manipulate the bone back into position. This is going to involve a lot of movement and pressure. Jake managed a nod, just barely. Ben placed his hands on Jake's arm. He began to push and pull, feeling for the correct position. The broken bone ends ground against each other. Each movement sent new shocks of agony through Jake's nervous system. The medical bay was completely silent except for Jake's labored breathing and the quiet beep of the monitors. Everyone watched, human and alike. They watched a human Marine endure what should have been impossible. Stood up from his chair. His injured arm hung useless, but he moved closer to the surgical table. He needed to see. Needed to understand how this weak creature could bear such pain. Position looks good, Ben said. I'm applying the internal now. These will hold the bone in place while it heals. There were small metal pins that Ben inserted through the skin and into the bone. Each insertion was a new spike of pain. Jake had lost count of how many times he had been hurt. Everything blurred together into one continuous wave of suffering. But he was still conscious, still aware, still enduring. Last pin, Ben said. Jake's eyes found. The commander stared back. For the first time, there was no mockery in that gaze, no superiority, just something that might have been respect. Done, Ben said. Jake, we're done. I'm closing the incision now. The closing was almost easy compared to what had come before. Stitches pulling skin together. Bandages being wrapped. Pain, yes, but manageable pain. Familiar pain. When Ben stepped back, Jake finally let himself relax. His body went limp, his hand released. She winced and flexed her crushed fingers, but she was smiling. You did it, she whispered. Jake, you actually did it. The medical bay erupted. Human crew members cheered and clapped. Some were crying. They had watched their fellow Marine endure hell and come out the other side. Jake lay on the surgical table, completely drained. Every part of his body felt heavy. His arm throbbed with a deep, aching pain that was somehow better than what he had just endured. At least now the surgery was over. The worst was behind him. Checked his vitals one more time. Heart rate coming down, blood pressure stabilizing. You're going to be okay. Feels like I got hit by a ship, Jake mumbled. You might as well have been, Ben said. He looked exhausted. His hands were steady, but his face was pale. I've never seen anything like that. Jake, what you just did was beyond brave. It was beyond anything I thought possible. The human crew members surrounded the table, pushed through the crowd and grabbed Jake's good hand. You crazy bastard, you actually pulled it off. Had to, Jake said. His words were slurred. The shock and exhaustion were catching up with him. Had to show them. Captain Graham approached the table. She looked down at Jake with an expression he couldn't quite read. Marine, you've either done the bravest or the thing I've seen in 30 years of service. I haven't decided which yet. Maybe both, ma'am, Jake whispered. A shadow fell across the table. Jake turned his head and saw standing there. The massive commander loomed over him. For a moment, neither spoke. Then did something unexpected. He bowed his head. It was a small movement, but for a warrior it meant everything. I was wrong, said. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. I said your kind was weak. I said you could not endure what we endure. I was wrong. We're not weak, Jake said. Each word took effort. Just different. Different, repeated. He looked at his own crushed arm, then back at Jake. Yes, different. He paused, then spoke again. A deal is a deal, human. I will accept your doctor's treatment. I will trust your medicine. Ben stepped forward. Commander, I can begin your surgery immediately. We have the anesthesia prepared. You won't feel any pain. I know, said. That is what I mocked you for, but I understand now. The purpose of your medicine is not to make warriors soft. It is to heal them properly. There is no shame in healing. No, Ben agreed. There is no shame in healing. Looked at Jake one more time. What you did today, I will not forget. No will forget. They moved Jake to a recovery bed in the corner of the medical bay. Gave him something for the pain, not much, just enough to take the edge off. Jake was grateful. His arm felt like it was still on fire. The crowd dispersed slowly. The human crew members left first, many of them stopping to squeeze Jake's shoulder or whisper words of encouragement. The warriors lingered longer. They looked at Jake with new eyes. Some even approached his bed to speak with him directly. Who had been so quick to mock humans earlier stood at the foot of Jake's bed. I owe you an apology, human. I judged your species without understanding. You have shown me my error. It's okay, Jake said. He was too tired to hold grudges. It is not okay, insisted. But I will work to be better, we all will. As they prepared for their commander's surgery, Jake drifted in and out of consciousness. He heard voices, the sound of medical equipment. Ben's calm instructions, too, and then, surprisingly, his voice. Dr. Carter, the commander said, I am ready. Good, Ben replied. Lie back, we'll put you under before we begin, you won't feel anything. There was a pause, then spoke again. I must tell you something. We pride ourselves on our strength, on our ability to endure pain. It is central to our culture, to our identity. When we met your species, we saw your use of anesthesia as weakness. And now, Ben asked. Now I understand. The human who just endured surgery without pain relief, he did not do it because it was better. He did it to prove a point. But his willingness to accept pain relief afterward, that shows wisdom. There is a difference between enduring pain when necessary and inflicting it on yourself when you have a choice. That's a very human philosophy, Ben said. We believe in working smarter, not harder. Perhaps we have been working harder when we should have been working smarter, said. Perhaps there is much we can learn from you. Jake smiled as he listened. His eyes were closed, but he was aware he had done it. He had changed something important. The alliance between humans and would be different now. Better. Surgery took 3 hours. Unlike Jake, the commander felt nothing. The anesthesia did its job. Ben removed the metal fragments, set the crushed bone, repaired the damaged tissue. When it was over, woke up in recovery, groggy but pain-free. They placed his bed next to Jake's. The human marine and the commander lay side by side, both recovering from the same type of injury, both alive and healing. How do you feel? Jake asked. His voice was stronger now, the rest had helped. Strange admitted. I feel no pain. My arm is damaged, I know this, but I feel nothing. That's the point, Jake said. No pain means your body can focus on healing instead of fighting. Is this why humans heal faster from surgery than expected? Because you do not waste energy on enduring pain. Maybe, Jake said. I never thought about it that way. Was quiet for a moment. What you did today, it was impressive, but it was also foolish. You risked yourself to prove a point. Someone had to. Why you? Jake thought about that. Because I was tired of the mockery, because I wanted to show you that humans are tougher than you think, and because I needed the surgery anyway. Might as well make it count for something. Your arm said, it hurt you before today. Every day for 3 years. And you endured that in silence. What choice did I have? Complain about it? That wouldn't have fixed it. I just lived with it until I could get it properly treated. Made a sound that might have been a laugh. We would have worn such an injury as a badge of honor. We would have told everyone about our pain, about how we endure. But you humans, you suffer quietly and fix the problem when you can. Different approaches to strength. Yeah, Jake agreed. Different approaches. Over the next few days, something changed on the Perseus. The warriors began asking questions about human medicine. They wanted to understand pain management, surgical techniques, recovery protocols. Dr. Carter found himself giving impromptu lectures to alien warriors who had previously dismissed his work. Recovered quickly, the anesthesia had allowed Ben to do thorough, careful work. The commander's natural healing abilities did the rest. Within a week, he had full movement back in his repaired arm. Jake's recovery took longer. His body had endured massive trauma, but he healed properly this time. No more daily pain, no more limited movement. His arm worked the way it was supposed to work. The two of them spent a lot of time together during recovery, would sit beside Jake's bed and they would talk about their worlds, their cultures, their different views on strength and weakness. On my world, explained, showing pain is considered shameful. Even children learn to hide their suffering. We believe that pain makes us stronger. Does it? Jake asked. Considered this. I used to think so. Now I am not sure. Pain tells us when something is wrong, but enduring pain when you have a choice to stop it, that seems wasteful now. We have a saying, Jake said, work smarter, not harder. I like this saying, said, it has wisdom. Brought them both meals. She smiled to see the human and talking so easily. You two are quite the pair. The whole ship is talking about you. What are they saying? Jake asked. That you're both crazy, said cheerfully, but also that you might have saved the Alliance. How so? Asked. Because humans and we're working together, but we weren't really trusting each 3 weeks after the surgeries. Captain Graham called a meeting in the main conference room. Every department head attended. Human and sat together around the large table, something that would have seemed impossible just a month before. We need to talk about medical protocols, Captain Graham said. Dr. Carter, you have a proposal. Ben stood up and activated the display screen. Yes, Captain. Commander and I have been working together on something new, an integrated medical approach that combines human and techniques. Stood as well, his repaired arm moved smoothly. No trace of the injury remained. Human medicine has proven itself effective, but biology has its own advantages. We propose sharing knowledge between our species. What exactly does that mean? Asked Commander, the human tactical officer. It means warriors learn human meditation and mental discipline techniques, Ben explained. These can help with pain management and stress. Meanwhile, human medics study regenerative biology. We want to understand how your healing works at a cellular level. Raised one of his 4 hands. My warriors are interested in this. Many have asked me about the mental techniques the human Jake used during his surgery. I can teach them, Jake said. He sat at the table in full uniform, his repaired arm working perfectly. It's not complicated, just breathing exercises and focus techniques. It kept you conscious during surgery that would have killed most beings, another warrior said. That is not simple. The technique is simple, Jake corrected. Using it under extreme pain takes practice, but anyone can learn. The meeting continued for 2 hours. They discussed training schedules, medical equipment sharing, cross-species treatment protocols. For the first time since the Alliance began, humans and were truly working together. After the meeting, Jake found himself in the training bay with a group of warriors. They had asked him to teach them human meditation techniques. He felt strange standing in front of these massive aliens, trying to explain breathing exercises. Okay, Jake said. First, you need to find a comfortable position. Sitting or standing doesn't matter, just be comfortable. The warriors settled themselves. Some sat cross-legged on the floor, others preferred to stand. They looked at Jake expectantly. Now close your eyes, Jake instructed. Focus on your breathing, in through your nose, out through your mouth. Make it slow and steady. Count each breath if it helps. He watched as the warriors followed his instructions. It was strange to see these fierce aliens sitting quietly with their eyes closed. But they were trying. They were willing to learn. The goal is to create a calm space in your mind, Jake continued. When pain or stress comes, you retreat to that space. The pain is still there, but it's not the only thing you focus on. You become bigger than the pain. They practiced for an hour. Some of the warriors struggled with it. They were used to fighting through pain, not managing it mentally. But others took to it naturally. Observed from the side, When the session ended, he approached Jake. "This is good. My warriors need these skills. We have relied on our natural toughness for too long. When that fails, we have nothing else." "You have plenty else," Jake said. "You're smart, disciplined, loyal. Those are strengths, too." "Strengths you humans showed us," said. "Before, we saw only your physical limitations. We did not see your other qualities." In the medical bay, a different kind of training was happening, and Ben were teaching human medics about anatomy. They had volunteers who let the humans examine them, ask questions, learn how their bodies worked. "The regeneration process is fascinating," said. She scanned a warrior's arm where he had a minor cut. "See how the cells multiply faster than human cells, and the way they align themselves for optimal healing." "Can we replicate this in humans?" one of the medics asked. "Not exactly," Ben said. "Our biology is too different, but we can learn from the process. Maybe develop treatments that encourage faster healing in humans." The work continued for weeks. Humans and learned from each other. The medical bay became a place of cooperation instead of tension. Warriors from both species would sit together during recovery, sharing stories, learning about each other's worlds. One day, an emergency call came in, a distress signal from a civilian transport ship. They were under attack by pirates and had casualties. The Perseus responded immediately. When they arrived, they found the transport ship badly damaged. The pirate vessel fled at the sight of a military ship, but the damage was done. The transport had wounded crew members who needed immediate help. "Medical teams prepare to receive casualties," Captain Graham ordered. "Dr. Carter, how many can we handle?" "All of them," Ben said confidently. "We have the staff and the expertise now." The casualties arrived. Most were from a species called the insect-like beings with complex biology. The human medics had never treated before, but the had. Immediately took charge. "Biology is sensitive to standard anesthetics. You must use a diluted form or they will have adverse reactions." "Noted," Ben said. He adjusted the dosage while prepared the surgical bay. They worked together, human precision and knowledge. The casualties were stabilized, treated, and recovered. By the time the transport ship was repaired, all the wounded had healed enough to return to their vessel. The captain came to thank them personally. "We heard stories of the Perseus. They said you had the best medical team in the sector. Now I believe it." After the ship departed, Captain Graham gathered the medical staff. "What you all did today was incredible. Humans and working together, saving lives from a species neither of you had treated before. That's what this alliance is supposed to be about." Jake had watched the entire rescue from the sidelines. His arm was fully healed now, and he was back on active duty. But he would never forget those hours on the surgical table. They had changed everything. That evening found Jake in the observation deck. The massive viewing window showed the stars streaking past as the Perseus traveled through space. "I wanted to thank you," said. "For what?" "For teaching me humility, for showing me that strength comes in many forms." The commander stood beside Jake, looking out at the stars. "I was arrogant. I thought my people were superior because we could endure pain. I did not understand that enduring pain is not the same as overcoming it." "You're welcome," Jake said. "But I didn't do it just for you. I did it for all of us. Humans, and we needed to see each other differently." "We do see each other differently now," agreed. "My warriors respect your kind, and I think your people no longer see us as just big, dumb brutes." Jake laughed. "You were never dumb, just stubborn." "As were you, as are all good warriors." Was quiet for a moment. "I have been thinking about something. What you did, refusing anesthesia, it was brave, but it was also foolish. You risked yourself unnecessarily." "I know. And yet I am glad you did it, because it taught us both something important. Sometimes the foolish act is the necessary one." "Deep words from a warrior," Jake said. "I learned from a human," replied. "You are all surprisingly deep." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Two warriors from different worlds, brought together by pain and healing, now friends in the truest sense. 6 months later, the Perseus Medical Bay had become famous throughout the sector. Ships would request the Perseus specifically when they had complex medical cases. The human medical teams had developed techniques that no one else had. They published papers, shared their knowledge, trained other medical staff. Jake got a promotion, not because of his surgery, though that became a story told throughout the fleet. He got promoted because he was a good Marine who had shown exceptional courage and judgment. His arm never hurt anymore. It worked perfectly, better than it had in years. Requested Jake for his combat team. The human Marine now served alongside warriors, leading missions, planning strategies. The other treated him with deep respect. He had proven himself in a way they understood. Ben and continued their work, always finding new ways to improve medical care. They trained the next generation of medics, both human and... The medical bay was never quiet, always busy, always saving lives. Captain Graham retired a year later. In her final speech to the crew, she talked about the Perseus's greatest achievement. "We came together as an alliance of convenience," she said. "We left as true partners, and it all started because one stubborn Marine refused anesthesia." The crowd laughed. Jake, sitting in the front row, smiled. He thought about that day on the surgical table. The pain, the determination, the moment when everything changed. He thought about its initial mockery and later respect. About human medicine proving itself. About two species learning that different is not the same as lesser. His arm would always carry a scar, but it was a good scar. A reminder that sometimes you have to endure pain to build something better. That sometimes strength means accepting help, and that the greatest victories come from understanding, not from conquest. The Perseus continued its journey through space. Its crew, human and together, faced whatever challenges came their way. They faced them as partners, as friends, as warriors who had learned that true strength comes in many forms. And in the medical bay, where it all began, the lights stayed on. Ready to heal, ready to help, ready to prove again and again that the best medicine comes from working together. Jake never regretted refusing anesthesia that day. It hurt like hell. It almost broke him. But it built something stronger than he could have imagined. It built trust. It built respect. It built a bridge between species that would last for generations. And that, he thought, was worth any amount of pain. Now we're starting too. All because a stubborn Marine decided to prove a point. After left turned to Jake. "She is right. Something has changed. My warriors respect your kind now, and I suspect your people no longer fear us as much." "I never feared you," Jake said. "You should have," said. "We are dangerous, but so I am learning are humans, just in different ways." The warriors did not cheer, but they stood, their heads bowed slightly. In their culture, that was respect, that was acknowledgement. Jake's first words after 2 hours of surgery were directed at the ceiling. His voice was weak, barely audible. "Did I pass?" Ben laughed. It came out half sob, half laugh. "Yeah, Jake, you passed." "I'm not many humans." Jake walked to the surgical table in the center of the room. Ben and waited there, surrounded by medical equipment. Monitors, scanners, surgical tools, everything needed for major surgery. Everything except the anesthesia. "Last chance to back out," Ben said quietly. Jake climbed onto the table. He lay back and looked up at the ceiling. "Not a chance, Doc. Let's do this." Ben took a deep breath. "Okay then, let's begin." And behind them, Jake stepped forward. He had followed the medical team to the training bay. Now he looked down at the proud commander who had mocked human medicine just hours before. "Commander," Jake said, his voice was steady, "how about a challenge?